Oh, hi everyone, and welcome to NightBorne, Episode 1, premiere episode with wonderful GM Jeff, Many-Eyed Monster. Don't try and say Jeff and Many-Eyed Monster at the same time. The mouth really struggles to say J and M at the same time. Jeff, Many-Eyed Monster, before we go around and say hello to all these beautiful faces around the screen, please do take a moment to check out the links that the bot is spamming at you right now, including our social links, places you can go to support us. Sponsor information. We are very grateful to Mage Hand Press and Bird in the Storm Publishing, who make all of this possible. And also we have many websites where you can go and get 10 to 15% discount using our special codes. And it really helps us out if you do use those as well. What else do we have? Oh, we also have the retweet link there. Please go and retweet. We don't give any gifts for retweeting this season, but if you like the channel, it's a great way to support us for free. Let's go around and say hello to everyone. Oh, hi, Jeff.
Hi, my name is Jeff Ellis, or at Many-Eyed Monster on Twitter, where I write RPGs and RPG supplements. I'm very excited to kick off this campaign with you all. I've been thinking about it nonstop for quite a long time. Well, I guess ever since the Numenera Humble Bundle went live, which isn't that long, but it feels like a long time. Yeah, and so I am going to kick it over to Angela. Angela, tell us about you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Angela at Phoenix24Fem on Twitter. I am a poet, writer, essayist who contributes to Art for Ourselves as part of the staff members. I have my own Patreon where half of my poetry is available. Recently reached a personal goal of 100 poems currently on there. So if you want to get access to 50 of them, support there. But yeah, I will be playing Beatrice Arzabe, the Dryad Wraith, effectively.
Excellent. And next we'll do Avery.
Hello, my name is Avery. I go by Map Online. I am an artist and cosplayer, and I do draw stuff. And today I'm going to be playing D377, or just Dell, and they are a good, sweet robot who does nothing, has never done anything wrong in their life ever, and they never will.
And confirm. If you see me threatening something small and off camera, it's my cat that is being a pain. Next we will go to Alice, who I'm sure can commiserate.
I completely relate to that, which is why I threw her in Scrat's office before we began. So yeah, I'm Alice, or White Rabbit Pick, on Twitter, which is where you can find me doing all the photography shenanigans, as well as all the TTRPG stuff alongside this channel. I am playing Jaron Watts, sort of a slightly grizzled older man. He's not old, but he probably looks pretty worn more than anything else. And I'm pretty sure he's going to end up as group dad and try and keep them all alive and stop them doing something. Well, you'll see.
We'll get him plenty old. He's going to be plenty old by the end of this. Excellent, thank you. And next we have V.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here today. Today I'll be playing Zamira Halisjarna. She's just your basic, everyday young woman. She was helping out her aunt and her uncle in the shop, and now she's not. She's probably going to be the one standing there more bewildered and confused for a little bit as she figures out how she even got into this situation with all these interesting people. But yeah, I'm excited for this one today.
Awesome, thank you. And last but certainly not least, we have Scrat. Take it away.
Oh, hi! I'm playing Sparks today. Sparks is a stealthy nano who rides the lightning. They are essentially a raver in full rave gear. They're neon green goggles, face mask, hood. I've literally just in my headcanon added neon green ears to the hood. This second, that's a latest addition. And they also wear like fairly gothic gear actually, like motorcycle armor, covering a long dress which is split down the side of his body. I like this character. This is my favorite thing so far, I think.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I like Sparks quite a bit. Excellent. So in that case, we are going to begin our story in kind of in media res. If you feel like some things don't make a ton of sense or aren't being explained, bear with us. We're going to touch on all of it through various flashbacks and things. Nothing has been left out unintentionally. All right. And so let me grab my notes and then we will begin. All right. So, you're watching NightBorne, Episode 1, Midnight Pilgrims. Called from the deep I was, pulled out from walking, by way of wanting new, the voice was calling me to ground alone, demanding me childless unless the child fell from them, the titanic wilderness. Bears me bury them deep to fill my mother skin, but cannot know the blood my children will attend, to see me safe and NightBorne again. That is Arrival of the Midnight Pilgrims by Zedemeyer. Dell. Air buffets your body as if the sky itself protests your arrival. You tumble, ass over tea kettle, through the atmosphere. Above you, you catch glimpses of a giant flaming projectile hurtling far away from and far above you. Below, an expansive mix of mirror-like metallic surfaces and arid red grassland. Something rockets towards you through the air, some sort of gooey wad of black, starry material. For a split second, you think it seems to be something of an orb of the same material that your ship was made out of, and it strikes you just before you hit the ground and absorbs much of the impact. Just enough to keep you from dying, but not enough to keep you from losing consciousness. Will all of you set your damage tracks to impaired? Dell.
After a good start, lads.
Oh yes, I'm so ready for this. Dell.
Sorry, keep going.
You wake shortly after to the sound of thunder in the distance, though the sky above you, lavender as it is clear, save for a few golden and silver clouds and one angry stripe of black smoke drawn from the center of the sky down past the horizon. You realize that you are standing in one of a few large craters. Walking up to the ledge of the massive dent that you've punched into the ground, you look down into one of the other craters to see Zamira coming to consciousness. Zamira, can you give us a little bit of a physical description of your character?
Sure. Samira is average size. She's got this gorgeous, darker tan skin and this very long, dark black hair that she'll usually keep in messy braids or pulled up into a messy bun. But these very startling gray blue eyes that sort of catch people off guard. And she wears usually something blue on herself at all times. And she has this stack of bangles up on her right arm. They go almost up to her elbow. So when she moves, she has this constant tinkling sound when her arm is moving.
Excellent. Thank you. And cat gymnastics. And Dell, tell us a little bit about what you look like.
Alrighty. Dell is not average sized and not average build. He is I'm used to playing female characters. He is a 7'3" tall robot. They've got a visor that covers up their entire face, and it has like these cold blue LEDs that stripe through it. You can see a bit of human build on them. It's very hard to tell if they are like a cyborg or if they had just human bits just kind of thrown into a robot. It's very hard to tell. There's very little. You can see they're wearing these like red robes, and they have you can see a glow coming from the abdomen area, and their legs are probably the most prominent feature, as they are very long, very slender, and the joints on them seem to look like they'd move any which way. And where the shin would be, it's just like this light that seems to flicker. At the moment, everything is just kind of blinking a red, as
Nice.
Shit's gone wrong, yo.
um, Excellent. So both of you are currently covered in this starry black goo of your ship's skin. It looks like you've fallen into a tar pit and come out not with stars stuck in the tar itself. And that thunder that you heard before grows louder. And in fact, you think that it's coming from just beyond the nearby ridge. Around you, the others begin to climb up out of craters of their own, delirious from the crash and covered in this same ship skin. Sparks, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sparks will probably sit up, discharging a little electricity from his body as he does, like, whoa! Nah! Nah! Let's do it again! You only have to look at him for a second to tell that he's an adrenaline junkie. He's always twitching, always moving. I gave a description earlier in the intro, so like physically he's short compared to Del, and I suppose everyone is. Is that what the what was? Yeah. Okay, he's short compared to everyone except for Jaren, but we haven't met Jaren yet. You know, he's just like a little.
I think all of that is extremely accurate. Excellent. Jaren, coming from Sparks, tell us a little bit about Jaren.
Yeah, Jaren would probably push himself up on all of his on his forearms, just like, ow, sort of feeling where he'd hit, sort of just checking himself. And if you look at Jaren, he is quite short. He's just under 6 foot. He's fairly stocky, but he's definitely fit. He is someone who runs. He is physically fit. He looks like a fighter. He's got muscle. And he looks older than he is. He's in his early 30s, but definitely looks a lot more weathered. To some people, he's probably just very plain looking. He has that face that probably a lot of people have, that you see around, that he could sort of blend into a crowd. Sort of a square jaw and sort of a sandy blonde hair and just brown eyes and a scar that runs from the top of his lip down all the way down his neck and down under the shirt that he's wearing. He wears armor, but mainly on one side, across the side of his shoulder, which sort of joins not a chest plate, but sort of like something across his chest that glows. And everything about him seems practical. There's nothing there to either draw attention to himself, or it doesn't show his personality effectively, even though it does. That he's simple, straight up and down. And his hair always, even as much as it gets messy after this massive crash, he quickly can't help but push his hair to one side out of his face.
Excellent. And last but not least, Beatrice, can you give us a bit of your description?
So Beatrice probably, I would imagine for her going through pain is a rather strange experience, because there's elements where I imagine it's not so much she doesn't experience the pain as intensely as everyone else, but it feels kind of diffused throughout her body because part of her form is not entirely corporeal. There's elements of it that are kind of fading in and out of existence, and this sort of like almost black, inky gray kind of shadowy, almost kind of like a fog around, especially her hair. But overall, she's around 6 foot, 6'2", somewhere around there. She's a very tall lady. She has overall kind of this, the reason I sort of gave the description of like a dryad wraith is that while she has this sort of spectral, sort of emanating aura about her, a lot of her form looks as though like her skin has a very yellow, greenish kind of like tone to it. It like looking at her, just if you weren't paying attention very intensely, it's almost like looking at like vines and leaves that have formed sort of a humanoid kind of form in some ways, and just sort of that's kind of the color range that she is. And especially probably where she would feel the pain most is around this whole selection of crystal shards that sort of start from along, I'd say, bottom left side of her body up to across it to her right shoulder. There's just this formation of shards where a lot of the aura actually, if you look more closely, is coming out of. And she's probably waking up with a sense of like, huh, that's what pain is. I'd almost forgotten what that was. And with a sense of like immediately trying to scramble about a bit and see if she can find her notebook amongst all of her things and start writing some of these things down. Like there's a sense of like she kind of always wants to be paying attention to a lot of different things around like what flesh and bodies do.
Right.
There's a very weird obsession with that.
So as you are all standing at the top of your kind of respective craters that you have blasted into the ground from your fiery entrance, Zamira, you feel a little rustle under your clothes, and then a tiny green rock sort of climbs up and then sits on your head, and it sort of like snuggles down against you. And
I don't know, Yanshi. You all right though? She'll like kind of like pat her head, but like pat him at the same time type of thing. We better go find the others, Yanshi.
And so you all convene together at the top of this ridge where you hear the thunder coming from. And as you look out, you see what appears to be a miles-wide stampede of large quadrupedal reptiles with striking bright blue skin. And they are bounding the same way that a gazelle would bound. And they are making a wide curve, and then they shift and turn and start heading in your direction. The ground begins to shake, and where's my description for these little dudes? They race across what is essentially, the ground here is a mix of flat metallic surface that is shined to such an effect that it is essentially a mirror of the sky above. And sprouting out of this metal, seemingly impossibly, are tufts of bright red, like primary red grass. And littered throughout, you see larger patches of it. So further on, you see whole plains of this grass. And the sky above you, reflected in this surface, is a simple lavender, all the way across. Not in the hues and gradients of a sunset, but more like a clear blue day, except it is a clear lavender day. And around the large stripe of burning red smoke cut from where your ship has entered the atmosphere and proceeded to crash far away from you, there are silver clouds and golden clouds, and they sort of just hover and travel slowly, unaware of the extreme danger that is heading your way. You all take a moment to gather yourselves, and you reckon you probably have just a few minutes before this massive stampede is upon you. What do you do?
Jaren immediately straightens up and feels it is like, run, and starts trying to push everyone sort of almost away, but also in a side sort of manner, because at the moment he thinks that these animals aren't necessarily beelining for them because they look tasty, but because they're following a route.
Yeah.
So looking at them, you can see that they are very clearly, like you suspected, following a route, but there are so many of them, it's hard to comprehend whether or not you could run necessarily adjacent from this wave, whether or not it would be quick or not.
Are
Did you
there-
say we came out of craters, right?
Yeah.
Does it look, as we see them running, do we see them going for easier terrain, or does it not matter at all?
They seem to be stirred up. They are in a frenzy. And Zamira, roll me a level 3 intellect task.
And is this
Okay.
completely flat ground? So like there's no like rocks or anything jutting out?
I was going to say, are there any ledges?
I will get to that in 1 second as soon as we resolve Zamira's task.
How do I do that with the Roll20?
So you will open up your character sheet, and
Yep.
under intellect, there
Mhm.
should be a dice icon, and you can just click that. It'll
Okay.
prompt you for what level task you
Okay.
want to do. So choose
Alright, cool.
3, and then it'll give you the option to spend effort, which you may not want to do right now. This is a
Right.
pretty low
Okay.
task.
There we go.
Perfect. So Zamira, as Jaren is kind of like gathering everyone to make up a plan and try to like basically run for it, you can see amongst these things are pretty large, these blue reptiles, but you can see amongst them what seem to be larger creatures of a sort of yellow and brown spotted pattern, kind of like Wolverine, like original costume, like colors, and they seem to be darting in and out. You can't get a good grip on what exactly they look like their full anatomy, but you do see like small tendrils whipping around. You can't tell if it's the front of them or the back of them, and they seem to be moving in a way that is hurting and threatening this stampede. So these things are clearly being hunted at the moment, and they are sort of just beelining in this direction. Del, you're looking for rocks. You can actually very easily see a large outcropping of essentially large boulders, but they are this same strange kind of mirror-like metallic surface, and it seems almost more like a excuse me, more like a stalagmite of this material that has risen up, and there are others around it poking up out of the ground to form kind of like a crop, essentially, like a larger area. And that is within probably a short distance of you. You could take an action to get to it. If you want to discern whether or not that might actually be enough to protect you from all of this, you can roll a level 3 intellect task.
Radio. I'll give that a shot.
Sure, for it.
Level 3. Seems good to me.
You're not really able to surmise whether or not it would be enough to protect you from this. I mean, this is like thousands of these things. This is kind of like a migration that is being turned in your direction. Jaren, you are surveying the area in kind of every direction, trying to figure out what to do here. And a longer distance than the outcropping, and sort of in the direction that the herd is heading towards, like essentially like along that path, but away from them, behind you, you see what is a large, essentially like plain of black stone. And this thing is the size of a skyscraper. It is massive. Del, it is the same kind of monoliths that you saw during your descent that seem to like ring this area, or rather, I guess they travel through this area in a line. And this massive stone monolith, at the top of it is a hole punched through it, and there is a beam of light traveling east to west through it in other directions towards different horizons. And it seems it's hovering about 2 feet above the ground, but it's not bobbing. It doesn't move at all. It is just slightly above the ground. It looks significantly more sturdy than the outcropping, but it is further away.
Yeah, Jaron won't even be looking at the light or anything like that. He sees a shield.
Yeah.
And he literally points to it. It's like, we need to get over there now. Like, just sort of looking at everyone, even as they look around.
Excellent. Beatrice, did you want to use hedge magic for anything?
I wasn't certain whether or not... I was going to ask a weird question, but I wasn't certain within the parameters of hedge magic whether it would allow me to make minor smells as well. Because the question I was going to ask is, with the proximity of the stampede, can we smell what they... Do we get a sense of what they smell like?
To what end do you want to know that information? What are you trying to
well, in my head, I was thinking, like, even if it can only do a minor thing, I suppose another question is, do we all have the sense of those creatures darting in and out among the stampede? Like, would Beatrice know about that?
You can roll a level 3 intellect task if Beatrice wants to know about that. I don't think that in the panic, Zamira has really enough time to sort of just fill everyone in. The 7, so yeah, that would only be a 2, not a 3. So Beatrice doesn't really see these things moving in and out.
Okay.
Jaren, what were you going to say?
Jaren is looking at everyone and yelling at them to run, and if they don't start moving, he's dragging them.
Fun.
Yeah, I think Dell's looking around, and the moment Jaren speaks up, like the head just immediately whips to Jaren and just nods, like, as you wish. And I'm going to look to Zamira and it's like, come with me. And I'm going to probably just pick Zamira up and I'm going to book it.
Excellent. So unless you want to contest that, Zamira, Dell's able to pick you up pretty easily.
No, I think at this point Zamira's comfortable with Dell and she knows that Dell is acting out of her own concern.
Yeah.
So she totally let him pick her up. Totally.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So Dell, Jaren, and Zamira, you begin bolting towards this monolith. Beatrice and Sparks, what are you two doing?
Does Sparks move? Because Jaren won't leave until everyone starts moving.
Well, if you look around for Sparks, his instinct, knowing that he's not particularly fast, would have been to find a crevice or something to just hide in. So when you look around, if we want to roll for it or something, we might not see Sparks. Yeah. Sparks might be gone.
Sparks, roll. Both of you roll speed, and it'll be a contested roll. If you want to use any assets like skills or whatever that you might have, essentially one level, like if it eases at one level, will give you +3 on this roll.
Cool.
Dell could carry 2 people.
What difficulty was it? Difficulty 0?
Yeah, essentially no difficulty. You're just contesting between. Okay, yep, all right.
Like Jaren is like, Sparks, like, kid, where are you? Is he sort of yelling?
Yeah.
And like,
Go on. So Sparks, you have a major effect on this one. You see this herd coming towards you. You have just fallen out of the sky. You're all pretty banged up. You see it, and that adrenaline kicks in again, and you can feel yourself sort of like starting to dissipate again into that lightning form that you have, the one that sort of just takes control whenever your adrenaline hits a certain point within a certain area wherever there's a large power conduit, and you begin to like phase in and out again. And you kind of take it and you just hold it and you apply that fear to it. And you kind of just into this like pool of static within the metal surface. Jaren, you're looking around, you cannot find him. Beatrice, what are you doing?
It's probably been a while since she's actually been able to see other creatures and such. But she has been trying to pay attention enough to Jaren's suggestion to not do anything that will involve her dying. So, would it be possible for her to try and would moving through walls, would it be fair enough use in this instance to just try and phase to just let them pass through her? I'm
You're
asking.
gonna-
I don't know whether that's in the capacity of the ability. That's why I'm asking.
That's 100% something that you can do. I don't think Jaren's gonna let you stand there like, take me. I will phase through an entire herd of thousands of creatures. It will be extremely difficult. If you want to, yeah, I don't know if that's going to work. I think even Beatrice would realize that this is enough creatures that she is not going to survive.
Right.
fate
No, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it as a very extreme ability. It's just more like
Yeah.
minor, small. Then she will follow Jaren's lead on
Yeah,
that. I
like-
trust Jaren enough at this point to be like, okay, I will not do a reckless thing.
Like Jaren is sort of like looking for sparks, and then seeing that Beatrice hasn't moved, is like, oh, yeah, like just sort of runs and grabs her by the arm and is like running with her, but trying to push her like
Okay.
ahead to
She's
move
not
faster.
resisting. She kind of got lost in her head for a moment, just realizing creatures that she hadn't probably seen in a long time. Then she's like, oh wait, I should probably want to live.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's
right,
not
like-
pushing you like
That's an
quickly.
afterthought.
It's almost like just to get
Kind
you
of.
in front of him in case something does hit.
Excellent. So as the four of you sort of beat feet towards this monolith, I need all of you to roll a level 4 speed task for me.
Okay.
May I ask a question while they do that, Jeff?
Absolutely.
My major effect suggestion for rolling a nat 20 is that devices filled with electrical power explode. Is there anything around filled with electrical power?
Oh my god.
Not Dell. I don't want to make Dell explode.
Yeah, not Del. Kind of,
No,
honestly,
please,
only
that's
Del.
not
This is
okay.
actually like a large, like, kind of like Serengeti, like sparse plain. I'm trying to think. Yes,
Okay.
there is, and we will get to that in a second.
Yay!
I will.
Oh no.
That will be in there in a second.
I'm trained in balance, physical performance, performing arts, and speed defense tasks, all of which are speed abilities. Would I be able to?
Nope.
Oh.
Remember
No,
everyone
this
as
is
well.
running, essentially.
Just
Remember-
straight up running.
We're impaired, so everything becomes one step harder.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Oh
Okay.
well, then I'm dead.
And
I'll
if
just
I-
Alistair.
Okay, so it's difficulty 4. Because I have 1 effort, if I have like an edge in speed, does that mean I can use effort and not have it cost anything?
It means
how it
that
works?
spending a level of effort costs 2 speed points instead of 3.
Okay. Alrighty, so it's difficulty 4. I'm gonna use 1 effort. So that just brings it to there. Alrighty.
So far, all of you have failed.
Oh no.
Yay!
Well,
Uh,
look who.
Look who it is. Okay, so guess what?
Yay!
Guess what, Del? I get a free GM intrusion, which means that
Oh,
you don't get any experience points for this.
I just
um,
got this character.
I just got my brand new
I
character.
drew
Darn
them
it.
and everything.
So you all begin running across this plain towards the monolith. It's pretty far away, but you're making good distance, and you can hear the herd coming behind you, loud, pounding. Sparks, in the place that you're in, you're sort of you're here and you're not here. You're the lightning and the reality at the same time, and you can hear it all around you, and you start to see flashes of the red room that you saw when you first entered the ship. And you can see standing far away from you in this red room, you see the Red Lady, the voice from the ship, the woman who seems to know more about you than you might know about yourself. And she is standing far away and she is saying something, but you can't hear what it is.
La la la
no. Del, you are running alongside Jaren and Beatrice. Beatrice is starting to fall behind a little bit, and Jaren, true to his nature, is kind of like more keeping pace with her, trying to be there to make sure that he can do whatever he needs to get her out of this. And as you turn, Zamira, Yanshi shakes a little bit and then goes to fall. You reach out, you're able to grab him, but the movement, Del's not expecting it, and you fall and tumble on the ground. You tumble a short distance away from Del as this stampede is coming upon you. it moves over where your craters were. They leap over them. Sparks, you can hear it all above you, even though you're technically in this red room, and your sort of instinct to hide is starting to shift with your instinct to experience something extremely intense, and you start to come out into the reality again at the bottom of this crater. You start to form again, sparks running through the metallic surfaces and forming a shape until you're sort of there looking up at all of these creatures jumping over you.
Can I try and influence that a little bit? And I know it will be hard.
What would you like to do?
But I'm excited for it. If I'm going to come back, I'd like to be riding one of the beasts.
You are... Yes, I will say I will give you that, but I will give you that in exchange for the explosion that you wanted from your major effect.
Done.
Cool. So you start to form, and the sparks begin to travel across the ground to where you first were, and then they begin to leap and jump, some of them onto one creature, some onto another, until they start to form into a larger rush of energy. And Jaren, you turn around, you see that Del has dropped Zamira. Del, you spin and go to grab her, and as you look up, you just see this tiny raver start to come together on top of one of these blue reptiles, riding it across towards you. It's they're almost on you now. Beatrice, what are the rules for your phasing ability that you mentioned earlier? You're muted.
I'm bringing that up right now. Phasing. You slowly pass through physical barriers at a rate of 1 inch per round. You can't act other than moving or perceive anything until you pass entirely through the barrier. You can't pass through energy barriers. So,
and you can just do it. There's no, it doesn't say to roll for anything or anything like that.
It's just an action. There's nothing.
Excellent.
It's just an ability that I have with the existing partially out of existence.
Right. Cool. So in that case, I want all of you to roll a. Let me check my notes here. Roll a level 4 speed test. This is going to be our first initiative roll. And the way that initiative works in Numenera is that you roll a speed task equal to the level, the highest level of NPCs that you're dealing with. If you succeed, you go before the NPCs. If you fail, you go after the NPCs. Nice. Okay. 4. Okay. So you're all failing. Scrat's got it. Okay, so Sparks and V. You two are going to act before the NPCs. In Numenera, you can kind of pick and choose amongst yourselves who you want to go when, as long as it's determined by that before NPCs or after NPCs. So, Sparks can go first or Zamira can go first. It's up to you guys.
Oh, Sparks will be going first.
Cool. Sparks, you have come together. You're you're not on the lead creature. You're a few back, but you can see it all sort of converging on Zamira and the group. Specifically, Zamira has just landed in the ground. She has Yanshi in her hand and is looking up at this stampede of creatures.
I would like to make things more intense.
It does say.
I would like to use my push ability to push things aside. However, because I have where is it? I have electrical abilities. I'll proc it. Any normal abilities that I have that use force or other energy instead use electricity. So, and also I'm trained in illusions. So I would like a lightning bolt to strike near the front of the herd so that they divert away from my group.
Yeah, okay. Does your ability cost anything? Is this like a version of Onslaught or something?
It's called Push, literally called Push.
Oh, okay.
It costs 2 int. I have an edge in, so it'll only cost me 1.
Perfect. Excellent. Yeah, so spend that 1 int. Zamira, you are looking up at these blue reptiles. Massive. They're about I guess not massive, but they're like the size of like water buffalo. They're pretty big. And there are thousands of them. They are coming right at you. You are holding Yanshi and kind of looking up, and Yanshi is just shaking. Like it's actually kind of hard to keep a hold on it. And out of this clear sky, you see a bolt of lightning. With illusion magic, does it make sound and stuff, or is it just visual?
I'm just trained in illusions.
Oh, okay.
Pushed says you push a creature or object an immediate distance in any direction you wish. Must be able to see your target. Must be my size or smaller.
Okay, we'll say that this is all just sort of flavor for how you're pushing the herd. So this lightning bolt comes out of a clear sky, bam, strikes right in front of you, deafens you for a moment, and you see the herd sort of just turn, and they begin to veer off away from everyone. As they are doing this, Sparks, you are still on one of these creatures, and you just sort of turn away from the group and start heading off into the distance. So that brings us to Zamira. It's your turn. There are enough of these things that like this isn't essentially over. They're just not running into you. There are still more and more and more coming up the ridge. They are all they're following the path of their leader essentially. So they are all heading in this curve around you, but it is so incredibly loud and dusty and like, bits of like metal and stuff are being kicked up around you and everything. Your group is behind you, as is the monolith, just a short distance away. What would you like to do?
All right, so are there any craters around us either, or it's just the monolith straight ahead?
That's the monolith, and then a flat plane. You have the sort of flat metallic surface, mirror-like metallic surface, and then the occasional like tufts of tall red grass, but not tall enough that you could essentially like hide in it or that it would give you protection.
Right. So then she's probably going to run towards the monolith to have it act as a shield.
Okay.
I do have fleet of foot.
Excellent. I will say you all have run far enough now, even failing that. You didn't get to it in one turn, which is what the roll was for, but you have run far enough that if you want, you can just take a move action and that'll get you there.
Okay.
You don't need to roll for anything.
Okay.
So you beat feet. The rest of you see Zamira get up after this large lightning strike. Now it is the NPC's turn. Out of the herd, you see one of these large brown yellow creatures sort of get kicked and then stumble out of this moving kind of wall of creatures. And this thing is bizarre. You have seen strange creatures all over the Ninth World where you come from. And this seems like it would fit right in. It is a bipedal, yellow and brown reptilian. You see occasional like black spots like a cheetah's. It is so it's bipedal and it has these nasty little like wing looking things on the front to sort of like keep it up and balanced. And as it turns to you, where there would be a head, you just see this horrifying mass of tentacles. And some of these tentacles have tiny mouths, others have sharp barbs or suction cups. And it turns towards you and just, they all writhe. It is beat up. It's a little damaged from trying to navigate this massive herd. And it sees Zamira run, and it starts towards her. But between it and Zamira are the three of you. What would you like to do?
Is it any of our turns?
Yeah, so between the three of you, you can kind of decide who acts first here.
We're aware that it's going towards the mirror, though. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Essentially, it would at where it is, it would more or less have to like push through all of you to track Zamira, but essentially that movement of her getting up and running has sort of like triggered it essentially.
As it sort of turns to look at Zamira, and Jaren spots this, and also seeing it sort of switches its attention to her, I think he's just going to run at it.
Nice.
To try and literally physically not knock it over, but either distract it or take it out as much as he can.
Okay. So do you want to roll an attack against it? Are you trying to tackle it?
He's probably at first trying to tackle it out of watching Zemira,
Right.
and he's yelling to Dell the entire time, just get them out to the monolith, go, and he's just screaming as he's running towards this, whatever it is.
So you run towards this thing. Roll. We'll just treat it as a regular attack. Roll a level 6 might task.
Okay. So is that a might attack, sorry, or straight up might?
Roll a might attack. Use your unarmed strike. I think it is.
Yeah. Okay, so level 6 you said, didn't you?
And you can ease that using whatever various abilities, assets you have, as well as for spending effort.
I was going to say, I've got something called Impressive Display. You can perform a feat of strength, speed, or combat, impressing those nearby for the next minute, and you gain an asset in all interact. Oh no, hang on, that's the wrong one I'm thinking of. Combat prowess, sorry.
Oh, perfect.
One I was going to go for.
Yeah, what does combat prowess say?
It says add 1 damage, so...
Ooh, nice. Okay.
An effort, I'm going to spend 1 effort.
Okay, so that'll be 3 might points.
Okay, 3 might points. So when it says effort to damage, I put 3.
Yeah, so essentially you can use effort either to ease the task to make it easier to hit, or you can spend effort to increase the damage you're going to do. In this case, 6 is very high, so I would recommend easing the task.
Okay, I think I've done this wrong then. Dun, dun, dun. So I go up to 6, then I go effort roll, there we go. 3.
Awesome. +2 damage on the success. Oh yeah, so you got an 18, which also increases the damage as well. Excellent. So you step forward, and this thing, you know that charging it full on is not gonna work. It's essentially this massive, writhing tentacle beast. But you step to the side, and then you give it kind of a two-handed, like, palm strike into its ribs, and it's enough to knock it down and off of its path, and it takes 6 damage, which is a pretty hardy hit against this thing. Dell or Beatrice, what would either of you like to do?
After getting that order, Dell is making sure they're gonna, if I can, they're gonna try and pick Zemira up, or pick Zemira up and get to the monolith.
So you're able to do that with ease. Essentially, it'll just be an action for your turn. You run, you scoop Zemira up over your shoulder and just book it, and the two of you are able to get behind this monolith. Beatrice, what are you doing?
Beatrice wants to keep herself safe and follow Jaren's orders, but she's having very terrible flashbacks upon seeing him going out alone to deal with a creature. And she is going to stay back, and she is going to try and use her onslaught to try and help Jaren and help deal with this thing.
Yeah, so that is a level 6 onslaught, and you can ease it or increase the damage depending on what you want to do.
Okay, using onslaught, the mind slice variation to do intellect damage. It doesn't cost me anything because I believe mystical. I'm trained in this, so it lowers it. No, I have an edge in this, so it lowers the cost. So it costs me 0. Effort, because I'm trained in intellect, it would only cost me 2. Correct?
So edge only. Training doesn't affect cost. Edge is the only thing that affects cost.
No,
and
I
edge
have
only
edge 1.
and edge only applies to one thing. So
it only applies to one thing.
Yeah, so if it's reducing the cost of the ability you're using, but you're still spending effort will still be 3 points. Though the ability itself will now be 0.
Okay. In that case, I will still spend the 3 from my pool for intellect to try and reduce its difficulty of the task, correct?
Yes. So it'll be down to a 5.
Okay, so I have done that. I think it's so I would click on Onslaught Mind Slice from my attacks for intellect, Correct.
And then you would set a level 6 task, but then set 1 effort, essentially. So 2, 0 effort, 13. We'll say you spent the effort, which would knock it down to a 5.
It didn't ask me
Yeah.
for this, which
I'll take a
it
look
still
at
wouldn't
it.
pass though.
Yeah, still wouldn't pass though. You reach out to this thing's mind to sort of damage it in the way that you know you can do. But you reach out to it and you see its mind, and it is just noise. It is just so much writhing noise, and you're unable to really get a hold on what to even damage here. Sparks, you are on top of this lead creature heading around. You can see that they have started curving back and are still actually, you're pretty sure they are literally heading for the monolith, like literally aiming straight for it. What do you do?
Do I, this monolith seems important. How
It's very large.
does it look a lot like a lightning rod?
No, you don't think it would work like a lightning rod because it seems to be made almost entirely of stone.
No.
But there is an energy source at the top of it.
Well, if the things are charging towards the monolith, I'd like... Okay. I have an inability in movement. This is going to be great. Do I have anything else? No, I don't. This is going to be great. Okay, I'd like to stand on top of the dinosaur thing, wait for it to get close to the monolith, and then try and jump onto the monolith and head towards that energy source.
And just scramble up this sheer face. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have you roll a we'll say a level 5 speed task to balance on top of this thing.
Now, I'm not actually enabled at balancing, so if it's just the balancing bit, I can go with that. But
Yeah.
difficulty 6 because I'm impaired, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a little difficult.
It's very difficult, yes.
Let's put an effort. Let's put a level of effort into it. Let's do it.
Cool. Oof.
Oof.
You stand up or try to stand up on this thing that is just moving, and keep in mind these things move as big as they are. They kind of more bound like gazelles. They are jumping and leaping, and you are trying to like keep on this thing with no real way to even necessarily hold on to it. And you go to stand up and just immediately fall off. Roll me a level 4 speed test to sort of avoid the insane amount of hooves that are going to
And then
try to run you over.
Again, is that 5 because impaired or?
Yep.
You know, I might go ahead and how much effort do I have? Oh shit. Okay, I don't.
It costs 3 every time. That's a lot.
I don't. Yeah, and I don't have an edge in speed, so this is fine. There's no fires burning here. We'll put another level of effort in again.
Nice. And another major effect. Excellent. You roll to the side, and these things, you, in all of your sort of pent up adrenaline, you begin to sort of exude like electricity all over your body, kind of turning into this spiky little electric hedgehog. And all of these creatures are like, oh no, and they just sort of part around you as you just sort of huddle and just make yourself into this electric spike ball.
If they start parting around me though, after a minute though, like that's too exciting. Sparks is gonna like poke his head out as they start parting and just be like, I am a god!
So you all see like as you're running, Del and Zamira, you have reached the monolith, and you just see sort of Sparks stand up, who you have had trouble sort of keeping track of where the hell he's been this whole time, and you just see him stand up like, oh my god, in the middle of this huge herd.
Oh no.
Zamira, you and Del are standing here behind this monolith. You see the herd coming towards you, and And as you are watching them, they all leap straight at the monolith, and you hear this whoomp, 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 as all of them sort of funnel one after another into the monolith, jumping through it like a portal, and they are hitting it with such force that the rest of their body comes through it, and you hear this loud, even louder than the herd sound as thousands of these things begin to hit this monolith and disappear. Boom, 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 boom. But as you're looking at all of this, you sort of peer around trying to find Jaren. You notice that he's not with you, and you look out and you can see Beatrice and Jaren fighting this strange creature. What would you like to do?
Honestly, probably from hearing the thumping sounds. I could almost see it be a matter of her trying to protect Yanshi and like just trying to, because I'm assuming the distance is too great to really even close in to do anything attack-wise.
If you have something that is ranged, you'd be able to use that.
I have a ranged. I don't think I have a ranged weapon is the problem. Yeah, I don't have anything that's ranged in that respect. So yeah, so basically I would probably just sort of step back a little bit from the monolith itself in case there's any falling debris or that type of concern. And
it seems to be completely unfazed by these things hitting it, even as hard as they are.
Okay. And I'm guessing with a stampede, I can't exactly shout to the two of them.
Yeah, it would be hard.
Yeah, I think I'm actually just gonna like have it so she's curled into a ball over Yanshi to keep him safe.
Cool. So let's see. So it was Sparks and Zamira, and then NPCs. The creature that Beatrice and Jaren are fighting rights itself, and it turns towards Jaren, and it sort of just writhes angrily. Jaren, what am I gonna do to you, Jaren? What's going down? What's popping?
Does Jaren see sparks?
From where you are with all of these, he's very short, and with all of these large things, you kind of just see like a burst of electricity.
Can I hear him?
Quietly. It sounds like it's very far away because there's so much, like, this herd is so incredibly loud, but you still hear kind of like,
yeah, Beatrice will probably see as much as like he's effectively on top of this creature. Will physically Jaren's eyes roll. Oh my god. Okay, and then sort of turns back to try and.
So as all of this is happening, you're writing it. You can see more and more of the herd sort of like dissipating into this monolith, and you even see some of these like predator creatures stop and sort of just like back away from the monolith as these things go in. This thing is going to look at you, and then it is going to begin to writhe even faster, and then let out this horrible high-pitched screech. Beatrice and Jaren, will you both roll me, we will say, level 5 intellect tasks?
Oh wow.
Level 5. Yeah, okay, so Beatrice, you're kind of focused in this sort of mind place trying to do this attack on it, and you come out sort of just at the tail end of this sound, but Jaren, you are right in front of it, and it is sort of centered directly on you, and this sound turns your bones to jelly. You just kind of like feel immediately just nauseous and sick. Your attacks, speed, defense, and movements have been hindered by 3, as you just feel completely just inept after this sound. That brings us to Beatrice, Jaren, and Dell. The 3 of you, Dell, you are standing over Zamira, looking around this monolith, seeing all these things disappear, and you can see Sparks sort of standing in as they begin to dissipate, just standing in it, just exuding electricity, and then turn and you look and you see Beatrice sort of shake her head a little bit, but you see Jaren just start to wither. He turns pale just and looks immediately sick. What would you do?
Okay. Does it look like Zemira for the time being at least is safe behind this monolith? Just for the time, on a relative scale.
Yeah, for the relative time being, Zemira seems to be okay. These creatures are clearly not going past the monolith, and are in fact the numbers and the sound even is dissipating.
Alrighty. I kind of put just a hand on Zemira's shoulder and saying, "I will be back," and I would like to use. I have a fleet of foot, which allows me to move as part of another action.
Nice. So that lets you move a short distance as part of an action. Nice.
Yeah. Just so that. Do I -1 from my speed pool for that? Because is that the cost of it?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And if I have an edge in that, does that affect it?
Yes, correct. So you wouldn't spend anything if you're only going to spend 1. So basically, your edge reduces the total cost by 1, and since you're only spending 1, it's free.
Alrighty. And
yeah, you are able to get to Jaren very quickly.
Is using a Cypher like a whole action, or is that a thing I can do, or what? Okay. Right.
But yeah, you can move this short distance as part of your action to use that Cypher.
Okay, cool. If possible, I would like to how does this creature look bad off at all, or?
It's fairly damaged. It took a lot of damage in the stampede, and it's taken more from Jaren.
Right, yeah, if that's the case, I won't bother. Don't worry. I take out this large broadsword from my back.
Hell yeah.
And I would like to make a swing at this thing.
Okay.
Okay. I have combat prowess as well. Is that just for damage, or?
Yes.
It just says you add +1 to one type of attack of the choice.
Mm-hmm.
Just making sure I don't have anything else. I don't think I do. Yeah, I think that's all I can do. So, what is that roll?
So to hit this thing is a level 6.
Level 6.
Might test.
Okay. And how does effort work? Does that if I've already spent 1, does that come back after each round, or at a
so effort is the way effort works. You can use it on one action essentially, and you can use it as many times as you have effort. So if you have 1 effort, that's 1 effort level. So you can only use it 1 time per action. Essentially for this, you would spend 3 might to ease this task by 1 level.
Alrighty, okay, and I have an edge in might, so that'll be spend 2.
Excellent.
For it. I'll spend 1 effort to roll. My God, I'm doing so badly.
You come in to make this attack, and I would like to offer you a GM intrusion, in which case I would give you 1 experience for yourself and 1 experience to give to someone else in the party. And then I get to sort of do essentially whatever I want. But you can spend 1 XP to say no. It's up to you.
The thing is, knowing you, I feel like some more fuck shit's gonna happen, so I think I'm gonna want to save the XP. And also, I have a very morbid curiosity as to what you're gonna do, so I'm gonna accept it.
Cool. So, Del, you get 1 experience point. Who would you like to give another experience point to? And this can be for any reason. It can even be outside of game stuff, I really like the way so-and-so's role-playing, any reason.
I feel like considering Jaren is dying, maybe. yeah. I think us Glaives are just it's okay, buddy. we gotta see it.
So Del and Jaren, you both get an experience point for this.
Fuck you up, man.
You come in and you bring your broadsword, bam, down on this thing. You actually connect, cutting through a large mass of tentacles that all sort of fall out in different areas. And it lets out another scream. And I would like you, Del, to make a level 5, I think it was, intellect task.
Okay. Do we have anything I can add to that? Oh my god! That
so-
really took a hit.
So it screams, and as it actually dies, you realize that this is actually kind of like a death wail, and you get that same sort of strange sickness in you, as if it's disrupting the things that keep you running. And your attacks, speed, defense tasks, and movements are now hindered by 3, so they'll be 3 steps harder. But you begin to sort of just shrink down, and you and Jaren are both just having the worst days of your life. But as you finish this thing off, you realize that the herd has more or less dissipated into this monolith, and the other creatures, these other like predator creatures, look around and they see you standing there. You're kind of incapacitated, but you have killed one of their own. Your broadsword covered in its ichor, and they see sparks sort of just standing, buzzing with electricity in what used to be the center of this stampede, and they sort of just go about their own way off into the plains. They have had a hard fight. You see that none of them have actually managed to make any kills, at least not within sight, and they sort of just retreat for the day. You are standing with Jaren over this creature. Beatrice is within sight. You can sort of see Zamira huddled by the monolith, and Sparks is now just standing off in the distance, kind of close to the monolith, still just like riding that high. What would you all like to do?
Probably seeing Jaren hurt, Zamira would jump up now that the danger's gone and run over to him, and I'm going to do, what's it called again? The healing touch.
Awesome.
On Jaren.
He's probably sat there with his hands like over his head, not actually stood up, just like he's trying to focus on being a bit more sane again.
So
Okay, now.
The way that healing touch works is it can recover points to a pool.
Okay.
But I will say, if you would like, you can use your healing touch action to remove this sort of effect that they have on them.
That would be great. And since I have an edge, I don't have to spend a point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Difficulty level on this one?
I will. Does healing touch normally have a difficulty at all?
Well, I'm going to roll, and it says the input one, so I'm not sure. Let's see if I can find the.
I didn't mean to click on that, but it might be relevant later.
That might come in handy. It just says 1 intellect point. Difficulty.
Okay.
Let me see here.
Because I think you just spend an intellect point.
Yeah, it's a 2 intellect task. It says difficulty 2 intellect task.
Okay. Yeah. So just roll a difficulty 2 intellect task for each of them to attempt to sort of remove this effect.
All right. Did it go through?
No, I don't see anything.
It says effort to damage. Oh, never mind that. There we go.
Please don't damage me.
No, it's just I'm like, I'm always asking for damage.
Get up!
Excellent. And then if you would
Same
like to,
for Del.
roll one for Del, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So now that I know how this processes, yes, go.
Nice. So another thing that you can do in Cypher, in which Numenera uses, anytime that you reduce a difficulty to 0, it requires no roll. So that's just something to consider. But excellent. 2 successes. How do you heal them? How does your touch work?
So essentially she'd be running over, and she always keeps like this little kit tucked in a pocket, and she'd be pulling out this kit at least for Jaren, and just sort of kind of getting ready to see if he's okay. And as the whole like touching to feel for broken bones, it's probably not perceptible unless someone's like really looking, but like the palms of her hands start to get this very warm glow to them. But she's got her hands pressed down and it just sort of starts to absorb through their skin and they get like this warm feeling. And then in terms of for Dell, kind of the same thing, except her hands kind of take on more of a bluish metallic glow. And as she places it on Dell, it's almost like you could see it working up through the circuitry instead.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Jaren, you have spent, I mean, really both of you, Jaren and Dell, you have spent a lot of time at war. You have faced many difficulties. You've healed many wounds. You may not notice this glow, but simple patching up and checks, health checks and stuff like this do not normally work this way. You notice that Zamira's ministrations seem to have almost an immediate effect, as this horrible sound that you heard that sort of disabled everything fades. Your hearing comes back to normal. You feel rejuvenated. And you're not sure if maybe just the screech, whatever it was, wore off, or if Zamira's effects somehow applied much quicker than you might think they would.
Jaren, you probably hear just sort of a gasp as if he's been holding his breath for a long time, and he looks up at Zamira, confused, but just nods. Thank you.
Are you all right now?
And he sort of taps himself, accidentally taps his shoulder a little bit too hard and winces. Yeah, I'm fine.
You're sure?
I'm sure. Where's Sparks? I mean, I could hear him yelling from somewhere, but...
He's over by the monolith.
Yeah, and at that point, I'm guessing I hear, like, the...
Yeah. Is Sparks still just screaming and shooting electricity?
Well, when the things disappeared, like, he's got nothing to lord over, so he just kind of...
The dead creature here if you want it.
Yeah. So he's gonna walk up to the monolith, and he's thinking about climbing it. But before he does, could I possibly take a moment to take a recovery roll?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of you have an action called a recovery roll that will restore 1d6 points. These points don't have to go to any one specific pool. They are just points that you can restore to whichever pool you like in whatever denominations you like. So that's just 1d6.
I can't use any because the first 5 damage can't be recovered unless I sit there and actually repair myself with my little kit.
Right.
Would Beatrice, with her proximity to the healing, because she probably would have wanted to get up close and just check in on Jaren as well, would she have noticed because she's I think specialized in understanding Numenera and such, would she have noticed the healing touch, the way that it stood out?
So this may not be specifically Numenera related. It's weird, it's different. Numenera is kind of more specific to old world technology that works as magic, as opposed to all magic. Right. But you can roll, I'll say, an intellect 4 task to see if Beatrice notices this as she's watching it.
Okay. I will roll that right now.
So you notice that it's because you are so insightful and kind of in tune to what's going on. You notice Jaren and Dell's reactions are particularly kind of surprised a little. They weren't expecting this to work this way, but in that same sort of kind of red herring sort of way, you're not sure if maybe it's just the effects of that thing wearing off faster than you might have anticipated, or if it is specific to what Zamira's done here. Jaren, you see Sparks sort of catching a breath, and just looking at this monolith with that Sparks look that you know is just going to cause trouble.
Jaren doesn't mind that he's got that look on his face. He's more just standing up, looking around, making sure everyone else is all right. He knows Sparks is going to get them in trouble at some point. In a way, he finds it a bit endearing as long as it doesn't hurt anyone else.
Excellent. Sparks, do you do anything with this monolith?
Well, Sparks is well aware that movement is not his strong point. And you know, he's aware. So what he'll do is he's going to think, well, I want to climb, but to get a head start on the climbing, maybe I can find a way to propel myself up the monolith. So I'd like to discharge electricity at my feet and use push to try and propel myself into the air, if that's cool.
Yeah, you could do that. Special ability action. Push your object in immediate distance in the direction you wish. You must be able to see the tires. Not affects anything. Must be within short range. Push is quick. Force is too crude to be manipulated. For example, you can use pull a lever, even close a door. You are able to. I'll say, actually, honestly, you're able to sort of just shoot yourself up. It's a large stone monolith, mostly flat. You kind of hit it, and then you scrabble fingers for a hold, and then just slide down it. It is very wide. It is not like you can't like get your arms around it. Roll a speed check. I'll say a level 3 speed check to see if you can find like even just like a hole in it somewhere to try to grab onto.
Yeah, I have nothing to help or hinder here. Woohoo! Any difficulty?
3.
Are we still impaired, or?
That is a good point. I will say, having used your recovery rolls, you are now back up to Hale. To that point, V and Del, if you two want to use recovery rolls to get out of that impaired state, you are welcome to.
For myself as well?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you...
I had not.
How does it feel?
We have an XP, right?
Yeah.
Can I spend that XP to reroll?
No. You can spend the 1 XP that you already have to refute it if you like.
Nah, let's go with it.
Okay. So Sparks, you get 1 XP and you have 1 XP to give to anyone else for any reason.
I rolled in that one. Isn't that a free one for you?
Oh, right. Yep. Okay. That's fair.
Damn it.
Actually,
in
that point, you also wouldn't have been able to refute it. So you all are watching, kind of catching your breath, just recovering from everything that has just happened to you in the past, 10 minutes. Zamira, Yanchi has stopped shaking and is sort of just sitting quietly like a rock just in your hand. It seems very just exhausted. And you are all catching your breath, watching Sparks just try to scrabble up this thing. Occasionally, he'll get a hand on it and pull him up a little bit and then slide again, and just and you all hear a wail, like a sound of someone experiencing deep grief, coming from the direction of those stalagmites that you saw, that Del saw rising up out of the ground. And from where you are, you can see the stalagmites, and standing around them, are what seem to be 3 humans. Excuse me. They have varying shades of skin color, and are dressed in sort of soft, what seem to be mixtures of silk and leather, all vibrantly colored in different purples and blues and greens. And each of them has on their left arm a large, what looks almost like a metal scoop that kind of like scoops down into where their arm is and would seem to be like a shield. Jaren, while you're looking at this, you are able to deduce pretty easily that this is something that would be used for both defense and for ramming. And they hold kind of at their side these large clubs that are they are, I don't want to say hooked, but kind of curved into a large knot at the top. And one of these three, so there are a total 3 people, is sort of on their knees, their head in their hands, and you can hear them just sobbing. And from around the other side of the stalagmites, you see what is essentially a metal dog, like a metal robotic dog, and where its head would be is just a large glowing orb. And it sort of trots around and it sits and sort of looks up at one of these hunters, and the hunter looks at it and shakes his head angrily, and just sort of takes a few steps away from the group, looking down. And then that same dog gets up and goes to the next person and does the same thing. And that same person just sort of scratches their forehead and then looks away and doesn't really say anything. What would you all like to do?
We all are able to see this group.
You're all able to see this, yes.
I think Dell's taking a little moment to get themselves together. Like after Zamira's healed them, they just kind of look at Zamira like for a long while, but the gaze is completely inscrutable. You can't tell.
Mm-hmm.
And they stand up to their full height. Their lights no longer flickering from that effect, and they'll walk over and position themselves next to, I think probably next to Jaren. Just look down and then look back up at these people and be like, "Should we assist?"
And Jaren, after sort of straightening himself up, he's just watching. He sort of, after a bit, crouches down, almost like in a squat, just to watch their movements. And because I'm assuming this is fairly repetitive with each person as the dog.
Yeah, the dog kind of goes to each person, each of these 3 people, and does the exact same reaction. And they all have sort of varying responses in terms of like physicality, but all of them are dismissive. And the person crouched in their, crouched down, holding their head in their hands, weeping. The dog even goes up to them and does that same, like, sits and then looks at it. You get this sense that it is speaking to them as the lights within the orb kind of flash in kind of like a speech pattern. And the first hunter who had stepped away turns angrily and walks over to it and kind of grabs it by where the scruff would be and sort of just pulls it away from this crying person.
And at that, Jaren will probably stand. He's known dogs growing up, and he doesn't shout out to the person. Instead, it's almost instinctively he lets out a whistle that he would almost to the dog more than the person, but as an alert, sort of make their presence known. But he's not standing aggressively or anything like that. He's just watching.
You stand up, you give out this kind of sharp whistle. Behind you, we see just sparks just sliding down the monolith again. And the person kind of holding the dog looks up, shocked, and then immediately just extremely confused, kind of taking in the sight of your group. And the dog pulls, and he sort of just lets it go, and it trots up towards you. It's got a its body is metallic, but it is not. It looks like muscles. It looks like musculature made of metal, and it has a tail and everything that is not actually wagging. It's just behind it, and it trots up to you, and it has this glowing orb for a head, essentially. And it trots up to you, and it sits down, and it looks up at you, and out of the kind of fog of light within this orb, you see what appears to be a human face come out of it. And it just says, "Will you be my master?"
And Jaren crouches down again and looks very intently at this creature. And he can't, like, Jaren has been on his own for a very, very long time. So he's got both that concern of, I don't want something, but at the same time, there's that warmth there that he's sort of like, why do you need one?
You lean forward and you proffer this question, and the human head sort of tracks your movement down to its height, and it just says, "Will you be my master?"
When you say human head, what does it look like?
So it seems to be kind of like a middle-aged man with dark skin and sort of I'd say like, how do I describe it's like patchy hair. Seems to be kind of like almost like they're balding, or they have some kind of like scalp issue. And there are large sort of like golden hoop earrings on hanging from their lobes, as well as two large cuffs up at the top. And it just sort of looks at you again in the quiet and just says, "Will you be my master?"
And again, Jaren just sort of leaning in and looks up at Del briefly and then back down again. Sort of thought, there's a thought that runs through his mind is, someone else is going to be following me if I say yes. But he's like, were you created like this, or were you put into this?
You ask it this question, and you can see beyond it the two hunters who are standing up have taken sort of more defensive positions. They've raised their shields and they have their clubs at their side, and they are standing very pointedly between you and this sobbing person who you can still hear. And you ask it this other question, and it gets up and it walks over to Del, and it walks around him, and it sits down, and then it looks up at Del and says, "Will you be my master?"
I think when it was speaking to Jaren before, could we all hear that, or was it just like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is audible to everybody.
Okay, cool. I think Del just looks down at it, and it's just like, I am not a master. I said.
And it gets up, and it walks over to
out of character. I'm livid.
It gets up, and the things I do for roleplay.
It's a weird floating head.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Questions.
Free him.
It walks over to Beatrice, and it sits down, and it looks up at Beatrice and says, "Will you be my master?"
Yes.
And it stands up, and it walks around Beatrice, and then sits beside her, facing sort of out to the where the hunters are, and just sits kind of like obediently at Beatrice's side. And you see a look of sheer rage on the faces of these two hunters. And we are going to leave it right there for 1 second while I go take a bio break.
We goofed it.
Like, Darren is so suspicious of everything. He's like, it doesn't look like it. Therefore, why is there a floating head?
Yeah. I was like, this is kind of cute. Like, and then they just kind of like, yeah, there's like a human head in. It's like, oh no.
Yeah, no.
Human head is like, nope.
Human head, I was like,
Nope.
You're
Like,
like,
if it was just a glowing bowl, I could get behind that.
Yeah. But the other thing is as well is it won't answer my questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, have we unlocked more voice reel now that we've said yes? Like,
So
Well,
DLC.
you haven't said yes. I've said yes.
yeah,
Jared.
it's only gonna talk to the Congratulations, you have a voice in your head now.
Yep.
She's had worse.
We're gathering interesting pets. The pet rock and the human head.
We have. I need
You're
to
gonna
get
have
back
to
to the
give it a
ship.
name.
It's one of
God.
those things where
Max.
it's one of those things where with the way that Dell's particular existence is, and contrasting that with Beatrice's particular existence, she's too fascinated with wanting to ask it questions.
It's
Oh
very
yeah, no,
fair.
totally.
Say no.
It's
Totally on par with what
very
she would
fair.
do.
Yeah, it's very in character. I love it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if it was an actual dog or a pet, Jaren wouldn't be able to resist.
Yeah.
But it's a floating human
It's
head.
a human
What?
head.
You don't want a human head pet?
Crying, and he's like,
I mean, comparatively speaking, we have Dryad Wraith, average woman, relatively speaking, tall robot, lightning raver. This isn't that weird to her. And
Yeah.
given that she has a pretty comprehensive understanding,
Jaren's like, great, another one.
another one.
Good. Just what we need.
Hi.
Someone in the chat said
Oh.
cats or dogs. I prefer rocks, thanks. And that's exactly what I
Yeah,
like.
actually.
I'll
Yeah.
just my pet rock.
I'll just keep my pet rock. Thank you.
I'm good with Yanchi.
So you see the kind of incensed hunter sort of start to move towards you, and in fact you notice a glow up their shield as they move, and the other one reaches out with their shield arm. You notice that has a lot of articulation. It's able to move. It has this kind of large scoop shape and becomes a shield when they curve their arm, but it's able to move with relative ease, and they sort of reach out and stop them. And they say something that you can't quite hear, but that same like angry hunter sort of shakes his head, and then turns away and actually goes and stands with this weeping person. And the hunter who stopped them, a woman, she sort of slowly just approaches you. She puts her club down at her side. It's still in her hand, but it's not up in an aggressive way. And she puts her shield down and approaches, and she says, "Hello."
That's far enough. As Jaren sort of steps a bit closer, sort of in between everyone.
Yeah, Dell's stepping forward too. Sort of. Still out, but not like braced.
Her eyes dart to Dell immediately, and she watches you quietly for a second, and then she looks to Jaren. She says, "Who are you?"
Who are you? And why? It sort of looks past at the crying hunter. Are they okay?
As you turn your head to kind of look past her, she actually like steps to block your sight. She says,
You're very protective.
"I am. We are Moraviri, hunters, come from Davian's Perch. We have lost one of our own. And who are you?"
I am Jaren, a traveler.
A traveler. And she looks up at the burning scorch mark cut through the sky that is still there. And she says, "We saw the night enter during the day, saw things fall from it. Do you know what those things are? Jaren, the traveler.
I do not, Hunter.
She smiles. Your friend there. And she looks at Beatrice and the dog. And she says, you've accepted a Taigoa's bond. That is not something for someone who is not Moraviri. In my culture...
What is it?
What is it? She laughs. Oh. You will need to know a lot more about Taigoa before you talk to Vorsh.
You're saying words and I don't understand them. What is it, other than a head in a jar?
She points to it, and she like goes to point at it, and you say head in a jar, and she looks at you. She gives you this like very stern look, like you've said something profoundly offensive.
He's done that to a lot of people. He doesn't do it on purpose.
But she kind of has a guess of who you all are because she's never seen anything like any of you. And so she's sort of giving you the benefit of the doubt. And she says, Taigoa, they come out of the pillar. We put them... How to explain this? We put our dead in the perch, and the Taigoa come out.
So, this is your friend that fell?
No. This Taigoa was the companion of my friend who fell. All Taigoa serve. It is their purpose. They must serve. And with our friend dead, this Taigoa began its search. Normally we would take it back to Davian's Perch. It is not for a hunting party to take up a lost companion's Taigoa, but it is definitely, and she looks at Beatrice, not for outsiders.
I apologize
Taigoa,
if we have offended, but you understand we don't know what this is.
I absolutely understand that you do not know what this is, that you do not know Moraviri ways, but still, you have broken them. And there will be anger. In fact, and she looks up at that scorch mark again, I surmise that there will be many people angry with you.
Sounds about right.
I'm quite used to people being angry at me.
And the Taigoa looks up at you, and that human head sort of comes out of the fog again, and just kind of like watches you.
Beatrice, throughout all of this, she said this, but she's just been writing all of this down in like her notebook, just
as talking.
She's like all of that, and she's just sort of, but occasionally she's looking at the, like, while this has been happening, she's looking at the head, but then also looking worriedly at Jaren and Dell, and then also looking in the direction, trying to look in the direction of the sobbing woman, though I'll assume anytime she moves her head when she looks up, she tries to block it.
This woman sort of is just shielding you, not necessarily aggressively, but more just specifically shielding you from even seeing them.
May I speak with her? I do not want to offend anymore. But if she has lost someone, I am understanding of being in that situation, if it is all right.
The hunter looks at you and she says, absolutely not.
That's fair. I do not want to offend any more than I already have. I was lost in my intrigue as opposed to my manners. This happens quite often if it's not already apparent. And probably something a little bit different that maybe only Dell has ever seen is that the sort of inky black aura has, with looking every time Beatrice is trying to look in the direction of the woman or looking worriedly at Jaren or Dell, it's gained a sort of almost pinkish red hue. Like think of the most cliche Valentine's Day red shade you can think of. It's going that, and it doesn't happen very often. It only specific situations it comes up, but it's only when she's trying to look at the woman who's sobbing or Jaren and Dell.
She looks from Beatrice to Dell and she says, You came with these ones?
There's just a nod.
Hmm.
Correct.
There will be many people in Davian's Perch who think you are Taigoa.
And what will this mean for me?
I don't know. I don't make the rules. I don't pass the judgments. And for the first time, she notices Sparks probably still trying to climb this fucking monument. And she
Not
just
gonna lie.
points.
Forgot about that.
And is that one yours?
Yeah, that one's ours as well.
Ours is a relative term. We travel with him. He is definitely our companion. As to whether or not we have any control over him, that is really only up to him to decide. And Beatrice just looked at Jaren for help.
Jaren's he is his own, and Jaren can't help but quirk that smile where the scar sort of wrinkles. Unique individual.
Pretty.
She Kitty. She, after talking to Beatrice for a bit, kind of regards her quietly and then points to the Taigoa and she says, that one's name is Rustaban. At least learn its name. It will follow you now until you die, and it will do everything to protect you, even if that means it's dying in turn. Treat it well, respect it. While you are in Davian's Perch, learn about it. And maybe you'll be okay. And at this point, you see the other angry male hunter stand up after having talked to the crying hunter, who is now sort of, they aren't completely just crushed, but they are sort of just sitting up, kind of staring at the sky. And the man gets up and he sort of just storms over to you and he points at you with his club, but he's kind of standing sort of behind the woman a bit and to the side, she is still essentially between you and him, and he points at Beatrice and he says, I should kill you. I should kill you for what you've done. You have taken what is not yours. You have no right to that.
Joel step forward just with the sword out, onto the side, and they've lifted up a little bit just to show that they are ready to jump in if they jump in first, but they don't say anything.
He looks at Dell like he notices this giant robot for the first time, and he looks just extremely confused. He is much less composed than the other hunter. He says, What is this? What is this monstrosity? Who are you? What have you done? What is this?
Jaren steps forward. My companion.
If I may, in the background, Sparks gives up trying to climb the tower and just lets himself fall off it. He's done. He's tired.
My name is Dell.
He looks down specifically at the light that essentially makes up your legs, and then sort of traces the light in different areas across your body and on your faceplate. He says, You were not made in the perch, but you are powered by the same things. This is heresy. This is profanity. And the woman sort of looks at him and then looks at you very calmly, but just kind of like, is it? Let's have some answers.
I was not made here, true, but I had no say in my creation. I apologize if this offends you, but there is nothing I can do.
Whom do you serve?
Just kind of gestures to the party. I serve my companions.
And even the woman looks like kind of upset by this. And the man says, companions, more than one, you serve. Which of these ones do you serve?
His language is different than ours. What we call friendship, he considers serving. We are his friends, not his masters.
And his eyes widen, and the other hunter's eyes even widen. She looks at you and she says, no. No.
You tell us no often, but you don't explain why. And you also expect us to hold to rules we are unaware of. Perhaps instead of saying no, you explain. We can better understand you if you give us more information.
And the man goes to say something, but the woman sort of just cuts him off, and he stops, and you can see him like want to refute it, but then he sort of catches a breath again and just kind of like turns and walks away back towards the other crying hunter. And he sort of says over his shoulder, he says, "This will not end well. This is not right." And the woman sort of nods. And then she looks at Zamira and she says, "You make a fair case. I know you are not from here. I know you are from very far from here, in fact. Vorsh," and she points to the man, "is friend, I suppose. They had a strange relationship. Is dead in a puddle of flesh and bone and blood on the other side of those stalagmites, killed by Mujidivar." And she actually looks at the dead creature that you all have defeated, and she points at it and she says, "One of these. Quite a feat to have killed one. I would give you respect for that, were it not for many other things. Most importantly, I am the Moraviri eyes. I see for the hunting party. And I watched as 5 things fell from the nightcraft. 5 things fell," and she points kind of just in the general direction of where the craters are. "There. Not too long ago. And now 5 things I do not understand stand before me, claiming one Taigoa as their own." And she points to Rustaban and she says, "You should know, Ghost, that the soul that powers that creature," she points to Vorsh, "was Vorsh's brother. It used to serve Vorsh's rival. Now that rival is dead. And now that Taigoa serves you. He is emotional on his good days. Much worse on his bad days. I cannot let you leave here. You will need to come to the perch. You will need to speak before my masters. And they will decide what to do.
And what are the things they could decide to do?
To remove the bond that a Taigoa has, the living must be dead.
I thought so.
But
Well, that can't happen.
I suspected. And she looks at Zamira and she says, friends do not usually stand aside while other friends die. Reasonable.
That's probably the first thing you said that's actually made sense to us.
We're learning.
Are you?
We are. Oh. I've learned a lot about all of you. And she looks at Beatrice and she says, however, you do not exist here. And she sort of gestures to the way that Beatrice seems to fade in and out. I have never seen a ghost, and I have never seen a ghost command Taigoa. Maybe you will speak to my masters, and they will let you go.
Why?
It would not be the first time that I'd been asked to leave a place. And I
She
would not
looks at
want to
Jaren.
disrespect your dead. I have already done so on a previous occasion. I would not like to repeat it.
This is meant in no way a form of an aggression or a demand, but why do we need to go with you? Why should we?
She points up at the trail, but still looking at you. And then, without even really needing to look at it, she sort of just traces her finger down to the horizon that it strikes. And she says, Davia's perch. It's that way. And I suspect your crimes here today are just the first of a great many.
In your society, yes.
I can only speak for my society. I cannot judge you for anything else. If you have done harm to Moraviri, then I will do harm to you, but if your transgressions do not outweigh your benevolence, perhaps you go free?
I understand your upset of, and sort of gestures back to where Beatrice is. I'm sorry for your friend's loss. I am sorry that your friend has attached itself to mine. And I understand you protect your people. I will protect mine. If that means coming with you to talk, we will talk. But that's it.
She smiles. She says, you would be good eyes. Good eyes for a hunting party. Clear mind. I see who you are, Jaren the Traveler. You protect your group. Commendable. And I see this one, Ghost. Honorable, except for a mistake. In a strange land. I will speak your truth as to what happened here today. If I may not side with you, I will at least side with truth and logic. If you will come with me to Davia's perch without fight, that would be good.
Should I mention now that Sparks would probably be sneaking up on the hunters?
Oh god.
Oh, motherfucker.
Yeah, he definitely should.
Which hunter are we talking here?
Yeah, there are the two a short distance away with the one who's grieving, and then there's the one female hunter talking to the party.
Can he sneak up on the female without being seen by the other two?
I would
And
say
the party.
yes, but probably not without being seen by the party.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
he doesn't mind being seen by the party. In fact, he's actively trying to make eye contact. Like,
And Jared
Oh,
would be looking at Sparks going, I think we will come with you. Just sort of making a gesture, and if he doesn't, Jaren will have probably spoken to Del at some point, as they're both the glaives. Just with a click of his fingers or a sign. Like he might just sort of not scratch the back of his neck, but just maybe rub part of his ear as a sign for Del of do something. What I was like to, as if, so it's more like a signal of that rather than.
I think the reaction's almost immediate, and Del will go around. So it doesn't look like Del's going storming towards this hunter, but is immediately going towards Sparks with the intention to just to restrain.
well, if you're like shaking your head, then Sparks, shrugs, and sort of like rushes the last few feet and shouts "boo" at the.
Roll a level 3 speed task.
God, they're gonna throw something at you.
Can I use stealth?
Yeah. Nice.
I can already tell this character rolls well when I'm doing bullshit.
Not wait till.
He understands his purpose. So you're actually able to scare her a little bit. You actually run up and yell "boo," and so she's speaking to you, and then she's watching Jaren, and she's like, "What is this? What are you?" And then you jump up, and she's like, "Oh!"
That is the one we can't take full responsibility for.
I think that almost immediately Del has Sparks by the scruff of the neck, up.
Is there anything you'd like to do with your minor effect?
Del, how are your pools doing?
They're doing okay because most of the stuff I used I had an edge in. But at the moment, they're alright. I'm missing 2 in might and speed.
Can I give Del a little pulse of energy?
Yeah, we'll say that you can. Del can recover 3 points.
Yay!
So you kind of grab Sparks instinctually, and he's still just charge, and you feel it sort of power through you, and she looks at him, just baffled. And then she sort of laughs and smiles, and she says, "You're strange child, very energetic."
Child, no! I am the prophet of the Skylords!
You're right, he acts like a child quite often.
She says,
Hey, baby.
"The Skylords have no prophets. You have no idea what you're talking about." And then she looks at Jaren, and she kind of gives him a little wink, and then turns and she says, "Then, if you will come with me without protest, we must go now."
These are the Skylords!
And at that, as
Screaming
Jaren's about to talk, you just sort of see a that you and if you're close enough, you just hear breathe, Jaren. Breathe. 1, 2. And he's just counting. He's like,
Didn't you see them fall from the sky?
And I just look at Dell briefly as I try to converse.
I look down at Jaren and just the sword goes back in the sheath and the hand goes over Sparks' mouth.
Can I try and convince this person that my party are someone to be revered?
This is
no.
turning into the road Eldorado.
Yeah, she is not ignorant of who you are and what has happened here.
Jaren says, like, we are not harmed in the process, and we will not harm you, and we will talk.
She nods. Yes, I think that is commendable. And she looks at Sparks and she says, the one we lost today, a lot like that one. And then she turns and walks back to where the other hunters are.
We put Sparks down, and then the hand comes off the mouth. And I'll look to the party and be like, I feel like I may not be welcomed. They did not seem to like.
Dell, I don't think any of us are welcome.
We're all under scrutiny. You're not the only one.
I mean, there's
And
only
I
3
think-
of them.
And I think you see Dell just kind of put like a hand across the chest, and it's just like, I feel fear. And I think that just,
Yeah.
I think that just, there's nothing else to that. It's just kind of has that hand over the chest for a little while before looking back at Jaren, like, should we move on?
He pauses and then nods and looks to everyone. Stay very close. Stay very aware.
The sword's
Okay.
back out.
As you proceed to where the others are, the sobbing woman sort of just stands up and she looks at all of you. And then her eyes sort of follow to where Rustaban stands next to Beatrice. And then she closes her eyes. And she looks at the other woman, and the other woman nods. And the crying woman just turns and heads off, sort of in the direction of where you know the strike of fire from your ship leads. And Vorsh stands up, and he looks at all of you, furious. And then he looks at the woman, and he says, Callispa, this is on you. This is you. You can speak to the masters. You can talk to them about this. You can hang with these people. And Callispa just seems completely unfazed. He's like, okay, we will all hang, and somehow that will ease your grief, I suppose. And Vorsh just bares his teeth, and he turns and follows the other woman.
Jaren will not take his eyes off Vorsh.
Callispa turns and she says, it is just a short distance to the monolith, to Davia's perch. And you begin to follow. You notice that they've left the body behind. They've brought nothing with them. If you look, you see the remains of what seems to be another Moraviri hunter. And beside it, sort of broken clearly by blunt objects, is one of the Mujitavar, those large, tentacle-faced creatures, lying dead beside it, beside the body. And the 5 of you travel for a bit across this bizarre sort of mirror-like plain occasionally walking through these large tufts of primary red grass. Every now and then, you get a gentle breeze, and the hunters, even Vorsh, sort of stop. They don't stop moving necessarily, but they take a time to just appreciate it. The crying hunter is at the front, and she has not said a word since you left. In the distance, you can see, same as the monolith that Sparks was trying to climb, one of these large stone plains, and you realize that the beam of blue energy that was coming out of the hole of the other monolith leads here to this monolith, where there is a similar hole, and through it the beam of light continues on towards the horizon, towards where you can see that fiery trail of your ship lands. And as you are walking, Sparks, you hear a very familiar voice. You hear the voice of the Red Lady. Looking around, you know that no one else hears it. Spoken into your mind. It says, "This place is dangerous. They are coming for you."
Thinks but doesn't say out loud. Should I kill them all?
The voice, normally your sort of like outbursts, your energy kind of revitalizes the Red Lady when you talk to her. She is very, she admires you quite a bit. And generally this sort of thing gets a very appreciative, non-dismissive laugh. She says, "No.
Damn it.
There is only one that you must kill to get out of this, to return to the night. There is one that will solve all your problems. Seek out..."
Looks like we got a nerf
And then her voice disappears.
Thank you so much per restart for the raid. Welcome in, Raiders.
Hi. And her voice sort of just cuts out mid-sentence, and you don't feel her presence anymore. As you walk, the hunters eventually, you and the hunters, the group, come to this monolith. And they all sort of stand before it. And the crying woman looks back and she says, "Timka's death was not on you. Rustaban's service, we should have acted sooner, should have stood up where we were supposed to." And she looks at Vorsh and she says, "We should have. We should have." And then she turns and she raises her shield up into that same kind of defensive position. And she hits her club against the front of it, and this blue energy, boom, comes out of it, and the whole thing lights up. And then, in a flash, she moves in a expedient charge and hits the monolith harder even than the stampede did. And she boom, disappears through it. Vorsh looks at all of you and he says, "We will go to the perch, and I will..." And before he can say anything, at the same speed that she entered, a fireball shoots out. And this woman tumbles across the ground in a burning pile. And both hunters look at it in terror, stunned, as if they've never seen anything quite like this. And they both sort of are paralyzed, shaking just a little bit. And we are going to flashback. Earlier this morning, when we were all on the ship, on the Nightcraft. You're all standing in a black room made of smooth, organic shapes, folded up into this sort of, almost like the interior of a nut, but it's made out of this pitch black metal, inside of which float motes of light and large sort of gaseous nebulas of color, like you are surrounded on all sides by space. The only way you're able to keep sort of bearings as to what shape this holds are lights running up occasionally to give it a sense of space. Well, room space, not space. You are all sitting at your chairs, these chairs that rise up out of the metal and conform to you to sort of perfectly support you. And you are looking into these orbs. And these large orbs of light, over the past few weeks, you've gotten to know them quite well. They are how you interact with the ship. They are how you run diagnostics, direct it, change the temperature, pretty much everything. And you are used to navigating using these controls. And you're used to the voice that you hear. The voice that Sparks knows as the Red Lady, but that many of you just know as the ship. It's the voice that the Nightcraft has always had. And it says, We have been traveling now for a while. I'm so happy to have you all here, to have motion again. I know that some of you could be upset leaving the Ninth World so suddenly, but we're going on an adventure. And I'm so pleased to have all of you with me. And Zamira, you feel Yanshi, who is currently sort of just like nestled where your neck meets your shoulder. It's usually where they go when you're sitting and working on ship stuff, just and it sort of vibrates there in the way that you're used to it doing. Sort of the same kind of low rumble as like a cat purr. If you put your hand on or, lay your face on your cat while they purr. That same kind of soft, pleasant shake. And you hear the voice again, and it says, You all mean so much to me. And I haven't been able to share much. I've been focused on this journey, on where we're going, the places that I'm going to show you. And it goes silent for a minute. And in your orbs, you see something. Normally, it's just white light that you've sort of learned to navigate with your hands with different motions, different presses and pulls. But out of it comes this sort of lavender color that begins to spread through all the light. And you hear the voice say, I'm so sorry. I thought I had more time. I didn't think that they would, and the whole ship rocks. You're not used to feeling this ship move. It is so seamless, so graceful through space. You're not used to even kind of realizing that you're on a vessel that is moving, and it shakes. And then it sort of lurches, and you all feel the chair's sort of material wrap around you tighter and hold you. And then harder, it gets pulled in another direction. And you hear the voice say, "Find me. Find me, and I will fix the..." And the ship rips open, and you're in an atmosphere. You've entered a planet, sort of without even realizing it. And we see Beatrice falling, and Jaren falling, Samira and Sparks tumbling, and we see Del falling through the sky, and we see the bits and pieces skyrocketing into this direction, burning that familiar path through the sky. And sort of from that same direction, we see the small beads of shipskin shooting straight towards you all. And one by one, just before you hit the ground, those beads splash into you, covering you in the skin of the ship as you hit the ground, saving your lives. Huge holes punched into the ground, and this sort of black night material splattered across the surfaces of these different craters. And the ship travels and eventually lands. And we're back to where we were. You are all standing there. The woman who went through the portal came out at the exact same speed, shot out as a fireball, landed dead nearby. And you are all looking at her as these two hunters stare, wide-eyed. What do you do?
I think you notice Del, for the first time since you've known them, actually take a step back, and you see or hear the clink of metal as the grip of their completely robotic arm grips their sword tighter, but they relax again and they look to the hunters and just tilts their head quizzically.
Zamira would absolutely get herself as far away from the fire source as possible and probably even tuck behind either Beatrice or Jaren, whoever is closer to her at that point.
Jaren, probably feeling Zamira move behind him, just puts her hand, like an arm out. Will reach back, see if he can find her hand or arm or something just to hold it. But otherwise, all that happens is that his eyes grow very, very wide as he stares at this. He's seen a lot of death, and it's not that he's unfazed. If anything, he's very fazed by what he's just seen, and it's almost like a memory, and he just takes a heavy breath. And without taking his eyes off it, just nods.
Beatrice, throughout all of this, especially as we've been walking towards this monolith, I didn't get to say it earlier, but she probably, if they were both okay with it, would have tried to position herself between both Jaren and Del, and would have tried to hold both of their hands if possible, which is probably a little bit awkward for her, even though she's very tall. Del is still a foot taller than her, but just kind of, yeah, just basically just trying to be comforting because she's very scared for them and worried about them. And upon seeing this, she's probably not trying to step forward very much, but just sort of almost falling to her knees, and just if you lean in very close, you can hear her saying, "Not again, not again, not again, not again."
Does Sparks do anything?
Sparks is looking wide-eyed at the fireball, and if you're close, you might hear him. I'm gonna try that.
Wow. The female hunter Callispa, she sort of snaps to, and you can tell that she's still not all there, but she moves and she pulls a shawl down from her shoulder, not the one with the shield on it, and she just in one motion whips and hits it, and you feel this gust of wind, much more than you would expect just from any regular shawl, just and the fire goes out. And then sort of almost in the same motion, she just throws the shawl over the body and she looks at it. And you can tell that she is wrestling with what to do here. And Vorsh, looking at the body, or the sort of indent where the shawl lays, turns and looks towards Davia's perch. And he says, "There is only one reason this would happen. If the monolith has been destroyed."
I didn't do it!
"If there is nowhere for her to go, she becomes nothing." And he looks at all of you and he says, "Your trial may be sooner than you expect. If there is no perch to return to, perhaps I will be your judge."
They're a fair judge.
And Callispa,
From the situation at hand.
Callispa says, "Even if the monolith is destroyed, the monolith is not everything that the perch is." And she doesn't really look at any of you. She's talking to you, but she's still just looking at this shawl on the ground. She says, "The Moraviri, the perch, more than the monolith. But if we are to know, now we must walk." And she turns and she says, "All of you are clearly travelers. It will be a day from here to the perch."
If I could, like, what if, okay, well, what if we didn't?
Don't.
And she has this very, like, forlorn smile. She says, "There's no getting out of this now."
There might just be! And
Don't.
Sparks would like to walk towards the monolith.
As Spark's doing that, Zamira is turning away and she's going to run off and actually have a little bit of a upheaval issue from the sight of the body and the smell of it.
Yeah, if anything, Jaren will go with her. Sort of knowing Sparks, he can't stop Sparks doing something insane. And he's like, "Do you know what, kid, if you're going to kill yourself, do it."
No, wait, trust me! Jeff, I'd like to spend one of my experience points to activate one of my nano player intrusions. When playing a nano, you can spend 1 XP to use one of the following player intrusions, provided the situation is appropriate and the GM agrees. Inexplicably unbroken, an active, ruined, or presumed destroyed device temporarily activates and performs a useful function relevant to the situation. The monolith seems presumed destroyed and not working.
Yes, 100%. You can 100% do that. We will move into that scene right now as we do this. Zamira runs off. The hunters don't do anything to stop her. They can clearly tell that she's not like fleeing, and they just sort of let her run off and do her thing, and Jaren goes with her. Sparks moves towards the monolith saying this, and Vorsh couldn't care less. Like, he's like, cool, go blow yourself up, that's one less of you guys. But Callispa sort of steps forward. She says, don't do this. She looks at the shawl like, don't do this. This is suicide. You do not want to do this.
I am a god! And he runs at the monolith.
You run towards the monolith. And actually, this gives me a perfect opportunity for what I wanted to do. You die! No, I'm just kidding. As Sparks runs towards the monolith, getting closer and closer, we pivot, and we are on the other side. We are standing in Davia's Perch. This large city rises up on a massive pillar into the sky, several miles up, where it fans out into a radius, a diameter of 30 or 40 miles. And out of that disk at the top rises white buildings, all this same stark white, this same kind of matte color, distinguishable only by the shadows. This entire city. And in the middle of it now, you see charred black, a massive crater sort of blown out of it, buildings destroyed, crumbling, fire looming up out of it. And standing more or less in the center of this city, in the center of the wreckage, as if the wreckage of this ship came at this monolith, hit it, pieces of it traveled through it, but it was more than it could take, and it broke and landed, no longer hovering just above the ground. And all around it is the wreckage of the ship, and the monolith is sort of sitting there, just stock still. You don't see the light traveling at the top, though peculiar. It doesn't look damaged. There's no scorch marks, there's no scratches on it. It's just sitting there. And the fact that it is sitting there seems enough for it to essentially be broken beyond repair. And lying next to it is a large pillar of glass. You all would recognize it as one of the engine pillars of the ship. Floating just beneath the surface of this glass is sort of gaseous clouds and sparks of electricity coming through where all the different pieces have cracked. And the electricity travels and bounces around and then dissipates and then does it again. And out of it, like a ghost, comes the image of the Red Lady. And she, much like Davia's Perch, is this solid matte white. She is a solid matte red. Even her skin, her hair, her clothes, all of it seems to be one thing carved into these shapes, but smooth and moving, organic. She's in a long flowing dress, and up out of the area where her shoulders are comes kind of a almost like egg-shaped sort of cone, and her hair tumbles down across it. And we see Sparks running, and he jumps. And as he hits it, the Red Lady reaches out and touches the pillar in Davia's Perch, and they both collide at the same time. And that red energy streaks up streaks up the monolith in Davia's Perch. And we see a red light at the top of it zoom out to other directions. And as Sparks hits this pillar, you see the red light connect to this monolith, and it and Sparks goes through it, and Callispa, and then nothing. He's traveled through it. And Callispa stares, confused. What? You are... And she looks down, and you can hear her say, a power source. An energy. And we see Sparks traveling through space.
We may want to hurry.
She looks at it and she says, there are rules, or I thought there were, to how the monoliths work. You must hit them hard, fast. We carry these shields because they give us the appropriate amount of charge to hit it. She looks around and she looks at Beatrice and she says, You're phasing the way you may not need to. Vorsh and I can take the others through and come back for you if you feel better about that. And she goes to reach out towards Jaren, but then she thinks better of it, knowing him to be sort of the leader. Clearly, he's not going to want to leave. And then she looks at Vorsh and thinks better of leaving him here, and she says, Vorsh, take this one. And she points to Zamira. Carry her through. We do not have time.
Jaren feels incredibly awkward right now because he was stood right next to Zamira because Zamira was not comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And he sort of holds on. He sort of holds on to Zamira's arm, and if she goes to move forward, he won't let go. Not in an aggressive way, more of a wait. And looks to Dell. Can you stay here? Make sure the others get through.
I can. It will be done.
And Jaren will sort of now let go of Zamira and will hold his hand out to her rather than stopping her from moving, and looks to these hunters. I will go through with her.
Callispa says, you will go through first. With me.
What about Zamira? Both of us.
I can't take you both through at the same time. One shield, two people, it's already asking a lot.
He sort of ponders for a moment. And I don't know if this is going to work, Jeff, but I have an ability called Flesh of Stone where I basically turn myself into a human shield and add to my defense.
Mm-hmm.
And Jaren sort of looks to Zamira at first and turns his back towards the monolith and holds out his hand. He's like, no, I'm taking her through. And he'll just sort of hunch up, and you can sort of see him tighten. Like, Zamira doesn't feel the grip tighten or anything at all, but you see him sort of close his eyes and just focus. And he'll lead her through.
So, you know that you are going to essentially need to hold her and run into this thing and hit it as hard as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Roll me a level 4 might task, and I'm easing that by 1 for your
For the edge?
ability. Yeah.
Okay.
for your ability, yeah.
Okay. 4, did you say? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can spend effort to
I
reduce
was
that.
going to
if you'd like.
say I'll spend some effort on that as well. Just 2.
Yeah, 2 might points essentially.
Yeah, 2 might points. Let's do that. Oh god, can I re-roll that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've actually got one of those, so he just doesn't trust these people at all.
Mhm.
There we go.
Nice. So you take Zamira, and you both begin to run, building up speed, and then eventually, sort of right at the end, you tuck in.
So I turn.
Yeah, hold her turn and fall through it, hitting it just hard enough that you both. And Del and Beatrice, you both watch, and you notice that Vorsh watches kind of eagerly, but Callispa's sort of holding her breath. And when they aren't spit back out, she just kind of relaxes. And then she offers her free hand to Beatrice. She says, "In that case, I can take you through."
Throughout this entire time, Beatrice is just sort of more collapsed, sort of on her knees, and she's been crying this entire time, like just looking at the body, and she's just been going. It's just been on repeat. She's been saying, "Not again, not again, not again," and like just she'll accept it, but it'll be very like, just take me and just do it, sort of response in how she goes about it.
I think this whole time Del's had like maybe, I don't even know if Beatrice has noticed it, but you'll feel a weight lift off of Beatrice's shoulder as Del removes a hand from it.
Callispa sort of gathers you up, gets you to your feet, and even just kind of like holds your shoulders and kind of just firmly grips you. She looks you in the eyes, and then she leans forward and she whispers to you. And I am typing out something in Zoom real quick.
Concern.
I have never known fear like this.
She whispers this in your ear, and then she sort of takes one arm around you and turns towards the monolith and pulls up the shield. And you both kind of experience that same charge with all the blue energy. And with one arm around you, she kind of awkwardly has to hit it with the club. Boing! And then she looks at you one last time and nods, and then you both zip through this monolith. L, you are now standing on an arid plain in front of a monolith.
We're gonna be best
Just
friends.
you and Vorsh.
We're gonna be best buddies. I think Vorsh
We're gonna be best friends.
We skip off. Del is just looking. Del is just looking at Vorsh, and again, the gaze is just completely unreadable, but it's just the constant look of. You kind of get the sense of, now what?
Right. So you have that plain face mask, and you sort of look silently towards him. And Vorsh has been watching all of this, and he looks at you and he says, "I should let you rot. I should leave you here. But
I think I would rust."
Vorsh doesn't smile. He says, "Better than you deserve." And he sort of roughly just grabs your hand and then puts up his shield and zips you both through. Voop! And on the other side, in Davia's Perch, the White City, burning wreckage of the Nightcraft surrounding this new monolith, risen 2 feet above the ground, not bobbing, still, with a red light glowing out of it, unlike anything anyone in Davia's Perch has ever seen. People are coming through the wreckage. You can see different responders helping people out of things. You can see people putting out fires, other people sort of just staring wide-eyed. Some are gathered around large bits of wreckage, sort of just picking through it, confused by this material, this strange black metal that seems to hold the night within it. And through the smoke and the fire, a single figure approaches. A woman. She is wearing what seems to be essentially a kind of like a mixture of a suit and a robe. One simple sleeve goes down to the wrist. The other, long past her hand, flows behind her, hanging from it small silver blades. She has tight pants that seem to end in heeled boots. Where the suit is open, there is just skin. No shirt beneath, and the skin there is covered in elaborate tattoos. Her long, sort of stock white hair flows down, some over, some behind. And she has, in the middle of this pale visage, golden eyes. And most notably, rising out of her, coming up out of her stomach, and then looping back behind and up over her shoulder, seems to be a large tentacle that ends in a sort of bestial visage, a maw, and it watches and looks around, and she sort of reaches up, touches its chin, and looks at everything. As sparks, you come through the portal, and you land in the middle of this wreckage.
It worked!
And the woman seems kind of unfazed. She watches you, and she looks up at the red light. And she says, "Hello, traveler. What is your name?" And at this time, Jaren and Zamira boom, fly out and land beside Sparks.
Yeah, Jaren sort of looks over to Zamira. Is like, okay, you okay?
Yes, are you?
Yeah. And again, sort of his arm and shoulder, he sort of not flexes. That's the wrong word. Like, sort of tries to make it feel a bit looser. That comes through.
Can Zamira like put her hand on his shoulder a little bit and try and alleviate that?
Sure.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, thank you. And then sort of pauses after seeing Zamira's okay and sort of turns to look up at Sparks and the scene that sort of greets him.
And all around you, you see, very notably, the wreckage of the Nightcraft. I mean, there are not a lot of things that look like this. You kind of know immediately what you're looking at.
And he stays very silent, but does quickly stand, helps Zamira too, and looks at Sparks. What have you said so far? Like, out of genuine, not like a concern, but like,
God, what have you told everyone?
Like, what has been told so far? Like, he doesn't know. Yeah.
It worked, oh my god!
Yeah, you're gonna have to say that again.
No.
And you see Beatrice and Callispa land, And Callispa actually lands gracefully on her feet and sort of guides Beatrice into a stance and lets her go. Shortly after, Del and Vorsh pop through, and Vorsh just kind of casts Del's hand aside and looks around and like takes in the situation, and without even saying anything, just runs off in a specific direction, clearly very concerned. And Callispa looks around at all the wreckage and the damage. And then she looks at Zamira, who is currently surrounded by fire, sort of in a burning field of wreckage. How's Zamira doing?
Oh, she's not doing well. Her eyes are huge, and you can tell there's like tears that are just sort of dancing on the edge of her lids. And her grip on Jaren's hand is probably tighter than you would realize.
Mm-hmm.
And she's essentially petrified as long as no one's talking to her. She's just almost a statue in and of herself.
Mm-hmm. And you're all standing here, and the woman in white, creature sort of hovering above her, she sort of lets it go. Lispa, what have you brought us? And Callispa turns, and she sees her, and her eyes widen in the same way they did when that fireball shot out of the monolith. Fear and sort of repulsion. Stunned realization. And she falls to a knee, and she bows her head. And she says, "Forgive me, Sovereign. I believe I've..." And she looks back at Beatrice. And she, for a moment, you can tell that she doesn't want to say what she's about to say, but she has to. She looks away from Beatrice, but not at Sovereign, just at their feet. And she says, "I've brought the Pilgrims." And she looks up, and Sovereign smiles. And that is where we'll leave NightBorne for today.
Oh boy.
Well, this is good. I'm gonna go cry for a while now.
We're in it now, huh, lads?
Yeah, welcome aboard.
I'm sorry, Hildy just keeps trying to attack the headboard of the bed, and then
That's fine. Rory's trying to
gets on
unplug
it
my
and
computer.
shit, and it's like,
Actually like that. Also, who
Pain
took the
villains.
dog through the monolith?
I was gonna say, where's
Yeah,
the pup?
dog came through the monolith.
Okay.
Yeah.
It did-
Where's the creepy head?
It can just do that.
you have to
Yeah, Roostabon traveled with Beatrice.
I'm just imagining him just like sort of there, and like if it were like an actual dog head, just like being right next to me and just being like,
It's just like a human man head. Just
Yeah, except it's a human,
Hey,
disembodied human head in a jar.
Yeah, it has
what
a
y'all
very
doing?
canine body. We'll learn more about how much it does or does not act like a dog.
This is like Futurama creepiness
Yeah, right.
put together.
Looking forward to it so much.
I'm glad.
Well,
Very
everyone,
good.
we're gonna head over to the Discord where we'll talk about what's happened so far. Please take a moment to check out all of the links that the bot's gonna spam you. That's also where you can find the Discord link to come and join us. And also big thanks to our sponsors, Mage Hand Press and Bird and the Storm Publishing, who make this all possible. Until next time, keep on evoking emotions, and we'll see you later on. Bye!